Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with the patch notes 6.1 breakdown, and they actually released the patch notes a day early compared to normal, so we can actually take a look at the patch notes quite a number of hours before the patch itself releases. And of course, being a major patch, of course going from 6.0 to 6.1, there is quite a lot of content. But what I will say is that I think compared to the past few major patches like 6.0 and then the 5. Whatever it is, I actually think that this is a bit of a smaller major patch than the past few, and but it's still huge. So whatever the case is, let's jump straight into it. So first things first, we of course have a new champion, Ryze. Of course, you guys probably have seen all of the faker content on Ryze, and he's going to be released the moment the patch comes out on April the 17th. Of course, we also are going to have Zillion and Nocturne a little bit later on, but it's not going to come in this patch itself. So there's going to be a new Wild Pass with Wonder Town Twisted Fate being a new skin line. And of course, going to start the moment the patch starts tomorrow. And then the entire theme for the patch is actually going to be Dual Nova, which basically is a kind of galactic theme where you have the Challenger Star and the Adventurers Star. Just as another theme, same as like the Yorl theme and Hextech theme, things like that. So the Adventure Star, which is for the 4 fun game modes, are only going to be on May 16th. The Adventure Star is going to be active. The Challenger Star is going to be active the moment the patch is over. And also, funnily enough, apparently they are trying to clamp down on win trading in the 4 fun game modes like Hextech ARAM and things like that. I'm not sure who is win trading in Hextech ARAM, but it's like literally of a fun mode, right? So yeah, apparently that's happening. So of course the new rank season is gonna come out pretty much a couple hours after the patch is over, and you're gonna get a new rank reward, glorious. I have no idea how to say that, but it's gonna be a Janna skin, right? So ranked updates, there's honestly, it looks like a wall of text, but really there's not a whole lot. Right, so one of the main changes is that you only need 5 games to get the season skin, and basically they're revamping the reward system. So you can see they pretty much removed the entire reward system, and they changed the store, and basically they're adding a new streamlined reward system that apparently makes rewards easier to obtain. So as a result, the season rewards boost cards will be converted into XP boost cards instead. And yeah, so also of course you now have a couple of interesting things. So if you're gold and below, if you get an S rating, you will actually get 1 bonus mark, so it helps you to climb faster to up to plat, I guess. But obviously most people, the large majority of the player base are in plat and above, so this is not really gonna affect a lot of people. Now this, I think, is one of the most interesting changes of the entire patch, personally, which is that remake for unbalanced team compositions. Now, to cut a long story short, if you're not in a full party of 5, because obviously if you're in a full party of 5, there's no reason to remake because of team comp, because it means you're just trolling each other in a party. But if you're not in a full party, so even if you're a duo or trio queue, if you have 4 or more selected champions that are marksmen or mages, which does happen, you can actually remake the match. Now, the reason why I say this is interesting is not just for the cases where there are legitimately 4 marksmen or mages. Now, I think 4 marksmen is more common than 4 mages, because you do have instances where, for example, you have a Vayne top, you have a Kindred jungle, then you have like a Lucian mid, and you have an ADC. So these kind of team compositions, I have run into them many times. I've almost never run into a 4 mage team comp before, ever. I mean, like a couple times, but 4 marksmen is a lot more common than 4 mages. But the kind of point that I'm going to drive at here is that, for example, if you have a situation where, let's say I am ADC and I'm duo with my support, and let's say we're picking later on, right? Let's say we have a person who picks a marksman top and a person who picks a marksman mid, right? So normally the support would never pick a marksman unless they're playing Senna, right? But in order to force the remake, you can actually purposely pick 2 more marksmen to hit the limit of 4, and then to force the remake. Because normally, like, dodging in Wild Rift is not actually a thing, right? It is in PC. If you don't knock in a champion, you will get kicked out of the lobby. So there are those random lobbies where, like, for example, the moment you enter a lobby, you see someone you had in your previous game, that guy was horrible, or that guy was flaming you or you were flaming that guy, and basically you don't want to be on the same team as these people. I think this is kind of a roundabout way to actually dodge the game, if you guys know what I'm referring to. So I think this system is very abusable. Of course it's not very abusable because you do need like 4 people to pick a marksman or 4 people to pick a mage, but I do foresee situations where teams can coordinate to remake the game and just basically void the lobby, right? So yeah, so there's gonna be a new rank up event coming up soon, but the date's not specified. Legendary rank is getting an update. Basically, the names of the legendary ranks are pretty much changing to like legendary master, legendary grandmaster instead of the guardian and vanquisher and things like that. It's a lot more streamlined because most people like who don't play legendary rank don't even really even know the rank progression, whereas everybody knows master, grandmaster, challenger, and things like that. So yeah, they also tweaked a little bit about how champion score works, but yeah, overall here also more changes to champion score. Basically you can get more champion score in legendary ranked, as well as on weekends in legendary ranked there is going to be an event where you can get more champion score. And also apparently they're changing the icons and things like that, and they added new levels to master versatility. Now I honestly see all these like champion score and like legendary rank changes as not really important because it doesn't really affect gameplay, and it's just not a very big deal to me, right? So collected legends, technically not a very big deal either. It's just the reward system, but essentially what they've added, of course, more rewards. And but I think they actually optimize the system a lot, right? So firstly, you have things like you can craft all, and you can open all packs that are available, which is like, you know, you get sometimes like you don't open packs, they kind of stack up, and then you have to tap many times. So these just make things easier. And also now you also have a new system where basically you have when you collect all 5 cards that's in a collection and get the grand reward, you can unlock the next collection, things like that. And you also have reduced probability of getting duplicate cards, especially duplicate gold cards, which of course I think is the most important to not get duplicates. And also if you earn all the grand rewards already, and there's going to be now a new feature where you can actually get even more rewards, which is really great because normally what happens, like before the next phase comes, if you complete all the rewards, you basically have nothing to do, and you're just kind of not incentivized to collect packs until the next phase starts, right? So I guess this is a really good change. So there's going to be a anti-cheat system where basically if they detect a cheater, it's going to automatically remake the game, and it's kind of a version of Vanguard that's inbuilt into the app instead of having to be on your phone. So there's they basically just reorganize the system settings just a little bit with all these part. I mean, I'm trying to give you guys the summary of what the changes are. Of course, if you guys really want to know all the minutia in terms of the details, of course, read the patch notes yourself. So next up, we have the champion changes. So first up, we have Asol. Now, Asol, his Q is getting a buff, right? So this is, of course, his main DPS. It used to be 2.5% of star stacks. Now it's 3%, so that's a huge buff. However, the damage of your breath of light while you're flying is going down by a significant percentage. I guess it's in compensation to this, right? But overall, this is still a buff because this, of course, breath of light is your main damaging tool, whereas astral flight only boosts your damage for a short duration. So I would definitely trade off the extra damage on astral flight for more damage on breath of light. So overall, I think this is a buff to Asol. Irelia, now I don't know what they're doing with Irelia, but you know they nerfed her early game in the previous patch because they said her early game is too strong, and in this patch they're basically buffing her early game back again, right? So health per level is going up by 8, armor per level is going up by 0.5, and here you can see her Ionian Fervor, which is passive, used to do 10 damage at base, now it does 25 damage at base, so that's a direct buff to her early game. And then the ulti is getting a late game buff, like you see 250 here, and max rank goes to 350. So essentially, they're buffing both her early and late game when they just nerfed her early game last patch because they said it was too strong. So I guess a little bit of the flip-flop action here, but I realize getting pretty much just a straight up buff. Ziggs also getting a straight up buff. You can see his, I believe this is his Q. His Q is getting a AP ratio increase from 20% to 25%. And his satchel charge is getting a huge buff. You can see that the execute towers is like at base rank is going from 10% to 20%, which is huge because at one period of time Ziggs was the most OP mid laner, like at this point it's like 2 years ago or something like that, and one of the reasons was his tower taking ability and the ability to just bomb towers, especially in pro play. So they did nerf it to the ground, and now they're buffing it quite significantly again. So And this is also a 1-point wonder, right? You will notice that at the base rank it's 10 to 20, but at the max rank it's 25 to 27.5. But this is the ability that you max last. So this means that for the majority of the game, this is going to be a huge buff to Ziggs, right? And the explosive, Hexplosive Minefield cooldown is going down by 2 seconds at all ranks. So once again, huge buff to Ziggs. Now Volley also getting a buff, so you can see his passive damage at base damage is going up from 60 to 80. The W damage is going up in terms of max health damage and bonus and scaling off your bonus health as well. And the ulti base damage is going up and AD ratio is going up as well. So basically, you can see in this patch, Volley got buffed, Ziggs got buffed, Irelia got buffed, and Asol, in my opinion, got buffed. So basically, in my opinion, no one really got nerfed in this patch. It's just buffs and adjustments. So major adjustments you can see here, basically they're increasing the base movement speed of all mages, and from what I noticed just at a glance, they're just increasing it by 10 for every single mage. So now we get to new items. Now this is where the discussion gets interesting. So the first new item is Band of Fantasy, right? And it's basically, in my opinion, it's competing with Ludens because it's about the same price. Same stat line, 80 AP, 7% Magic Pen, 300 mana and 20 ability haste. I think this is identical to Ludens, and the build path is also identical if I'm not mistaken. So this is basically a Ludens copy but with a different passive. So of course we know that Ludens passive is that I forgot what it's called, like Dissonance or something like that, where it basically like splashes does burst damage and splashes. So this one, Flame Blossom, basically when you damage someone with an ability, same as Ludens, it spawns a trap, right? And after a brief delay, the trap will deal magic damage equal to 100 plus 15% AP with an 8-second cooldown per target. And if someone gets hit by more than one trap, the second trap only deals 20% damage. So basically it's just an extra burst, something like Ludens. And really the question of whether is this better or is Ludens better, it really is dependent on, number one, how long is the brief delay, right? So if the delay is short and the chance of hitting the trap is high, this is probably going to be better. But if the delay is long, Ludens is probably going to be better. This damage is also really, really decent. It's definitely more than Ludens. Another factor is how many damaging abilities do you have, right? Because with Ludens, you can technically only really use it once every time that it charges up. But with this one, you have 8 seconds cooldown per target. So if you have a lot of spells and a lot of targets, you can proc this trap a lot. So in my opinion, for now, I think this is probably the superior version of Ludens, and this kind of phases Ludens out of the game, maybe, but we'll have to see how it goes. So Malignance, also 3k gold, 75 AP, 7% Magic Pen, 400 mana, and 20 ability haste. Now I have to say this, mana is one of the most useless stats for mages right now, and if you're asking why, it's because Mana Boots gives you a lot of mana regen to the point that in ARAM you don't even need clarity anymore. And unless you're playing some very specific champions that are very mana heavy, like Morgana spamming W for example, you really don't need mana from items. So getting 300 mana from Band of Fantasy and 400 from Malignance is really just not necessary, in my opinion. So decent build path. Your ultimate gets 20 ability haste, so faster ultimate cooldown, and of course the Hate Fog passive is when you damage someone with the ulti, you burn the ground beneath them for 3 seconds, dealing magic damage, which is 60 plus 5% AP per second, and reducing their magic resist by 10. And then the burn radius will increase with damage, so you can damage multiple people with the burn, not just the main target. And this Malignance honestly is an item that is mainly only useful on champions that can like proc it very easily or like very effectively. Like Brand, for example, procs Malignance very effectively. Teemo can spam shrooms and proc it effectively. Champions like, for example, Ahri has like 3 stacks and you can proc Malignance like 3 times. But probably on some other champions, let's say you have a single target ulti, let's say Syndra, right? Malignance is not gonna be for her, right? It's gonna be kind of useless to have Malignance, right? So it's a very specific item, only good on very select champions. So next up, we have a new enchantment, Hextech GLP 800, costing 500 gold. So you're gonna launch a couple of ice bolts in front of you. The range is pretty huge, deals a little bit of damage, but mostly the amazing part is the 90% slow that decays, and it only has 30% cooldown. So honestly, this enchant is pretty insane. Like a long range slow on a 30-second cooldown is pretty insane. And the only reason why this is actually pretty balanced is because it competes for the same slot as items like Stasis, QSS, and other amazing enchants, gargoyles, or whatever else that you might want, right? So just because of that, like that's the enchantment slot generally gives you a very OP effect, right? So this is kind of balanced because you can't get stasis or QSS if you go for this, right? So I think it's pretty good, but I honestly, like the enchantment problem is that stasis and QSS are so good that why would you not go for them? Why would you go for anything else, right? That's why like things like Repulsor and Magnetron have failed for the most part, because why would you take Repulsor when you can take stasis, for example, right? So I think this kind of has the same problem. So Boots of Mana now gets an extra passive where attacks and active abilities deal extra physical damage to minions to help your wave clear. And now the Boots of Lucidity has the base mana regen of 150%, same as the Boots of Mana. So they're trying to encourage mages to take the Lucidity Boots as well by kind of equalizing the mana problem. But honestly, if you're a mage, you get ability haste and mana regen from Lucidity Boots, right? But from Boots of Mana, you get 55 AP, which is huge, and you also get Magic Pen from like Mana Boots. So I don't see people taking Lucidity Boots over Mana Boots anytime soon. But what I do see people taking is Ryze's Crystal Scepter. So you have the max health reduced, but you have you have the AP reduced as well. But you now get 7% Magic Pen, and the main reason why Ryze was kind of a trash item is because it lacked the 7% Magic Pen. So now with the 7% Magic Pen, I think it's actually going to be good, and yeah. So next up for the runes. So Sudden Impact, basically, Wall of Text, pretty much what it does is the exact same thing as what we have right now, which is the extra true damage after you do a dash, leap, blink, teleport, etc. But now, after level 5, you're going to deal extra 10 true damage, and after level 9, you're going to do extra 20, true damage here. So, and get extra 10% movement speed. So, basically, this just helps Sudden Impact scale a bit better. Now, honestly, we all know that after they reworked Sudden Impact, it went from amazing to trash because it's giving you flat penetrations, changing to like just a little bit of true damage. Like, who really cares about the little bit of true damage, right? And it has a 10-second cooldown, so you can even proc it multiple times if you can dash multiple times, right? So it's kind of trash. I think this will make it a bit better, but I still don't think it's as good as the previous one. So Transcendence, basically, another Wall of Text, but basically level 1, level 5, same effect. Now the main change is that instead of level 11, you're getting the final effect at level 9. So in exchange for getting it earlier, instead of reducing 15% of the ability's cooldown, you now reduce 10% of the ability's cooldown. So I think, getting it earlier for a lesser effect is, it's a trade-off, right? So you get it earlier, but a lesser effect. Compared to you get it later, but a stronger effect, I think overall, whoever wants to take Transcendence still will. So it doesn't really affect things in the grand scheme of things. So, Summoner's Rift, new mechanic. The red and blue buffs can now evolve even if they've already spawned. So, last time what used to happen is you have to kill the buff, and then on the next spawn, it will evolve into the either like buff share with one person or the entire team buff share, right? And the problem with that is there's some very incompetent junglers who don't farm their buffs for like 4 minutes, and like it takes like up to 15 minutes to get the team-wide buff share, which is absurd. Right, so now that it has this auto evolve feature, it just makes things so much more optimized, and the buff share will be available at the soonest opportunity. So the Hexgate teleport has a lower cooldown, and also slightly changed positions. And also, interesting thing is you get 3 seconds decay movement speed when you exit the gate, which can definitely help you if you're trying to join team fights or objectives and things like that. And also, very interestingly, the Enchanted Gates can only be used by allied champions in the mid game. So, you have the enemy side Hex Gates, which sometimes you can take as well to deny them or just to use it to get across the map. Apparently, you can't do that until after the 11:30 mark. So, yeah. So, the Scorpion is getting a couple of changes. So, first up, when you're standing on that circle to summon the Scorpion, the enemy will be granted vision of you, so they can't see you. So, last time, they could only see the ring kind of glowing, so they kind of knew you were there, but not for certain. But now it's literally as if they have a ward there, so they can see you and they can target abilities on you. They can launch skill shots at you, so it's gonna be harder to summon the Scorpion. The turret damage to Scorpion has been lowered. Now, why is that the case? Because now turrets will prioritize attacking the Scorpion over minions. So Scorpion gets a little bit more tanky, but the tower will prioritize killing the Scorpion first. And so also they've adjusted the stats. So Scorpion now, I think it's a nice rework, I guess, because like I guess get like seeing the person taking the Scorpion allows you to contest it as an objective, which is kind of what Riot really wanted when they introduced the Scorpion in the first place. Now a lot of people are sneaking the Scorpion, which is not what they want. They want the Scorpion to be something you fight over, so that's logical why they made this change. And also the Scorpion was too problematic in terms of taking towers, so having towers prioritize it first, very logical. So just some very logical changes. So next up we have enchanted gifts in PvP. Now if you guys remember in the Hextech, like the Arcane patch, you used to have those Hextech loot kits that dropped, and when you channel, it will give you a random effect, and this is basically the same thing, but this time it's only in PvP and will not affect rank play. Now as a result, I'm not gonna explain it too much because I don't really care, to be honest, because I don't play PvP that much. I mainly play ranked. So these are the effects if you guys want to take a look. Same goes for Unbound Frenzy. They have made a number of changes, which I pretty much only ever played like 2 games of Unbound Frenzy, so this doesn't concern me that much. Hextech ARAM is now being renamed to AAA ARAM, which I don't know, who cares. And Arena, yeah, it will be launching later on, I guess. So final couple of changes. So this is actually pretty interesting, right? Or not interesting, but just a little bit more optimized. So when you buy a different boot enchant than your default loadout, it will automatically change the boot on your loadout so you can buy things easier. So what do I mean? So for example, let's say I buy Merc Treads, right? Actually, that's literally the example here, right? So let's say I bought Merc Treads, but in my loadout, I actually have plated steel caps into the gargoyles, right? So now instead of showing the plated steel caps into gargoyles, it will actually show me Merc Treads into gargoyles. So I basically have to tap less buttons to buy my gargoyles instead of having to tap like the boots and then the boots that I have, and then tapping gargoyles, right? So basically just less taps to get to where you want, right? And also another one is when you, after you have an enchantment, you can still exchange your tier 2 boots for other tier 2 boots of the same enchantment, and they will calculate the cost automatically, so you don't have to sell the entire thing and then buy everything back. It's basically the same kind of change of changing enchantments, you know, kind of the same deal, right? So the rest, chroma system. Basically now you can directly buy chromas instead of having to gacha for them, so it's just better for people who want chromas. And that is pretty much it. We do have a couple of skins, Soul Fighter skins, all releasing when the patch comes out tomorrow. But that's pretty much it for this patch. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and goodbye.